Colonial School District has created unique themes for each of its 3 middle schools. Here to discuss this approach to education and other issues in Delaware's 6th largest district is Colonial Superintendent Dusty Blakey, this week's first person. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, well, I recently visited McCullough Middle School to see the unveiling of the new planetarium, and I was surprised to see students from the 2 other middle schools. The George Reed kids brought their killer steel drum band, and the Gunning Bedford students delivered those delicious cookies and muffins. So tell us about your novel approach to running these middle schools.
Well, actually, it's the approach really stems from the high school. We have 19 career track programs at the high school. And so one of the thoughts that we have is, what do you remember most from your middle school experience? And most people talk about the hands-on opportunities they have. Their parents may still have the wood shop product that they made, or may have the pillow that they made. And so we then started to look at those experiences and said, hey, we can expand on the experiences that they're already getting at the high school and create a unique approach and get kids really engaged in their education and their future in middle school. And so that's what led to the 3 themed middle schools that we have. George Reed has the agriculture, culinary, and business. Gunning Bedford is the visual performing arts, digital media, graphic design, and McCullough is the STEAM middle school with the planetarium.
So now, how are you going to measure the effectiveness? I know the middle schools have high populations of poor students, and proficiency in key subjects, is struggling. Most of these kids are going to go to William Penn High School, where low academic performance has been an issue, but mostly everybody gets promoted. So how will you measure how well this works?
Well, we will use the traditional measures, any of your standardized test scores. We have our own common assessments that we use. We use other formative and summative approaches to gauging student achievement. Student achievement is on the rise in Colonial. It's really about engaging students in real-world experiences and making the curriculum come to life. And one of the things that we've noticed is that we are seeing a difference in kids' attendance, kids' discipline, and that ultimately leads to better academic achievement when kids are engaged in school. And based on all of those measures and other measures, such as attendance and discipline rates and things like that, we're really able to see an increase in engagement, which naturally will lead to an increase in better proficiency. And when they can apply, knowledge is really important, but the application of knowledge is more important. And so we're really focusing on making sure that our students have those foundational skills, but also able to apply them in real world settings and experience things that are important to them. And then we'll see a natural increase in some of the scores on the standardized tests that are offered. Now,
I'd like to talk a little bit about low proficiency in your district and throughout the state, but almost universal promotion. Mm-hmm. Governor Carney told me it borders on immoral that we're moving all these kids through the system when they lack basic knowledge of math, English, science. So, how do you stop this? And can you stop it? Or do we just keep moving kids through the system so we don't have 16-year-olds in 7th grade?
Well, I think it's a fundamental approach to education. It's important that we engage families and students as early as possible, preschool, pre-preschool. That's where our money is better spent from my perspective. And so in Colonial, we've really engaged in, we are now the only licensed preschool in the state of Delaware. We're a 5-star preschool program. So we're engaging our kids and our families at 3. And so it's my belief and our belief in Colonial that that's where you make the difference, is if you want to change the system, you focus on the front end of the system. And so we're making a concerted effort on focusing on the front end of the system, where then we can fill those gaps and are able to make sure that we really focus on student needs and family needs, for that matter, focus on the whole child. So when they enter the system in kindergarten and beyond, they have a foundation and they have foundational skills, and we can work to fill some of those gaps and work with parents early on when parents are engaged. And then that will change the system as we move forward, and slowly those 16-year-olds that may be in middle school, you'll start to see less and less of them, because we'll be able to close those gaps on the front end of the system.
So briefly on this one, you got a referendum through last year after it failed once.
Right.
Was the situation that dire that you might have had to cut all these jobs, and are you in good shape for the next few years?
The situation was that dire. We had a $6 million plus deficit that we had to close. And with all school districts, the vast majority of our operating money is salaries. And so how do you cut $6 million? You unfortunately have to cut people and programs. And so the situation really was that dire. I don't think any district goes to referendum or puts out cuts that, ultimately it hurts kids. And none of us want to do that, but because the bulk of our money, our operating money, is invested in salaries, that's really the only option that we have to close that deficit. And so the situation is definitely better. Thank you to our community for stepping up and really passing the second referendum, or the second time around. We've got more staff in our building than we had last year. We're able to, now breathe. We have some breathing room, and we can focus on that. And so I just think that's the answer to that question.
Okay, well, thanks again for joining us. Dusty Blakey is superintendent of the Colonial School District. See our full interview online at why.org/news.